Good evening. I'm attorney Vince Davis, and these are my office hours. I'm joined by my co-host, Miss G. Miss G, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I've solved all my technical problems, so we shouldn't be having that problem anymore. And I'm
Hallelujah.
ready. I'm ready to go this evening. What's the topic going to be tonight?
So, the topic tonight is it is contested versus uncontested.
Okay. So let me explain the difference between a contested hearing and a non-contested hearing. Let me start off first with explaining the non-contested hearing. A non-contested hearing is where you go to court and it's not going to be a trial. So generally, you can have, say at the beginning of the case, a jurisdictional or dispositional hearing, and you can have a non-contested jurisdictional or dispositional hearing. Now, by definition, uncontested means nobody is putting on any evidence. No witnesses, no exhibits, no documents, except the social worker. The social worker's report comes into evidence at an uncontested hearing. So if you have an uncontested jurisdictional or dispositional hearing, by definition, 99.9% of the time, you're going to lose. And here is, I consider in my own definition, a non-contested hearing being a hearing where the attorneys argue, but the only piece of evidence is the social worker's report. Now, a lot of people don't acknowledge this or don't want to acknowledge this, but when an attorney argues, their argument is not considered evidence. Let me repeat that. When an attorney argues, it is not considered evidence. So if all of the attorneys argue, and sometimes they're great arguments, but the only piece of evidence the judge has is the social worker's report, you're going to lose. So a lot of people think that when they go to a trial, quote unquote, that if their attorney argues, they still have a chance. Not true. If you want to have a trial or a true contested hearing, you and or other people in the case have to put witnesses on the stand, all right, and introduce documents into evidence other than the social worker's report. So I'll give you an example. I have a trial coming up, and the social worker has written maybe 10 reports. A lot of them say the same thing over and over again. Now, in order to contradict the social worker's reports, I'm having a doctor testify. I'm having the doctor's report put into evidence. I'm bringing the medical records to introduce into evidence. I'm calling the doctor who is testifying or making statements against my client. I'm calling that person as a witness so they can get on the witness stand and so that I can cross-examine them. I'm calling the parent as a witness. I'm calling the other parent as a witness. I may even call one of the children as a witness.
Is there an age limit on that? The children? Age requirement?
Generally, it's 4 and older, but it depends on the child's ability to understand the consequences of not telling the truth. All right, that's where the law cuts the people that can testify versus the people that can't. Now that doesn't usually mean age. You know, there may be a witness because of for whatever reason doesn't understand the consequence of going to court and telling a lie. All right, so then you may not be able to testify. That witness might be able to testify, but when that happens, in rare cases that happens, I make a motion to exclude all of that witness's statements that were made in the report. Because if I can't cross-examine the witness as to what the witness allegedly said, then it would be unfair for the witness's statements to be in the report and for the judge to consider it at the time of trial. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the difference between an uncontested versus a contested hearing. Now, those are different from pleas. Okay? Pleading no contest, submitting on the report. Those are different, and I won't talk about those today. But if you think that you're having a trial in juvenile court or CPS court, and you don't have any witnesses and you don't have any exhibits to introduce into evidence, you're going to lose. Plain and simple. Yeah, go ahead.
I received several calls from New York. A couple of parents called me from Steuben County and also from Manhattan. And they said that their court appointed attorney advised them to plead uh, no contest, um, or else they're going to lose their children forever.
Okay, well, I can tell you under the federal regulations, which every state must follow, including New York, that's a false statement.
It's not.
That's a way to convince your client
Mhm.
not to have a trial so you can get out early or you don't have to do the work to prepare the trial. 30 years ago, Georgia, 30
Mhm.
years ago, more than 30 years ago, maybe 35 years ago, I was a court appointed attorney.
Mhm.
You know, you have a lot of cases. You may not be interested in doing the work to prepare for trial.
Mhm.
Who knows? Who knows why you would advise a client that? Okay.
How
I
could you say who knows? I mean,
because you don't know what's in the mind of a person.
that's every court appointed attorney in Los Angeles and New York and Chicago and Utah and Maryland and Tennessee and Louisiana. Come on now.
I'm a lawyer.
Mm,
I only try to say what I can prove.
I
Now,
understand you're speaking like an.
do I think that that's good advice? Absolutely not. Okay, but I don't know the intricacies of each case. But if somebody tells you that, you may want to get a second opinion.
Mhm.
You know, it's like you walking into the doctor's office, and before the doctor does any lab tests, before he does any X-rays, or she, the doctor says to you, "Oh, Miss G, we have to do bypass surgery," without any tests. How would you feel? What would you think about that?
No, I understand, but that has nothing to do with what 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 we're talking about, though. These are people that's calling me, asking me if this is true or not, and I tell them it's not
It's not
true.
true. It's not true.
Right. And also the fact that it's not just New York, it's Los Angeles, it's in Sacramento, it's in God, everywhere in the United States, Vincent. I spoke to a lot of people telling me the same thing. That's why I asked you to do the show today because about this topic, because I'm getting so many of them. And then a couple of parents actually did what the attorney told them to do, and he promised that once they plead guilty, they're going to get their kids back. They didn't get their kids back.
Right, of course. If you plead guilty, how can you get your kids back?
Right. But out of desperation, the parents are exhausted, 18 months of this. And the father and the mother told me we were so exhausted. We just want our kids. And I said, but if you think about it, if you plead guilty to something, how can you get your children back? Especially something you didn't do. That was a hospital mistake, not your mistake. As a parent, you took the child to the hospital. You did your duty as a parent, but the hospital, to save their ass, are behind, in other words, um, they reported them to CPS. Now,
You know,
that's
there's a
messed up.
there's a book about that called Medical Kidnap.
Yep, medical kidnapping.
Look it up on Amazon, buy it, read it. It's an incredible story, but it makes 100% sense.
Yes. And that's still happening, by the way. They can have a million books out there about medical kidnapping.
Of course, it's still happening. There's still evil in the world.
Yep.
Okay, so of course, you shouldn't be surprised. What people should do is they should get second opinions, third opinions. They should educate themselves and not just rely on what somebody tells you. Look, these cases are probably the most important lawsuit a parent will be involved in their entire lives.
Mhm.
Entire life. And they're talking about their children. So, what should they do? And I saw on social media today, Fox in the state of Tennessee, the Fox News Network, got maybe 20 parents in a room, and they are each telling their story about how they were treated unfair, how they lost their children, how they lost their grandchildren, you know. And the first part ran today, and I was thinking, I hear that story every day in California.
Yep.
It's true all over the country.
Mhm.
So educate.
There is something I need to bring to your attention. I think I brought it up to your attention before about a couple of weeks ago, but you're busy, so you probably don't remember. But this is very important. Share this show today with your grandparents, with the grandparents and relatives. What CPS is doing is this: they have to divide, and I mentioned this to you guys before, divide you from the family so that way you have no financial help and you have no emotional support. So you can break down and then they point the finger at you and say, yep, they're crazy after you lose your mind. Okay. You can be a very sane person. You can be the most nicest person in the world, the most giving, the most amazing human being. But in moments like this, you will break down because that's your flesh and blood. That's your children, right? So when the grandmother is turned against you or the grandfather is turned against you and you're financially, need to hire an attorney or what have you to fight your case, they want to make sure that you have no support whatsoever. So therefore, guess what happens? They're going to go to your mom, your aunt, your sister, your brother. They're going to say, Malcolm said this about you. Then they're going to turn them against you. And then Malcolm didn't say anything. Malcolm has no idea what they were talking about. Then Malcolm, out of anger, he'll say, well, my mom beat me when I was 10 and Malcolm is now 40, right? Think about it for a second. That was gazillion years ago. But in the CPS world, in their head, in their little soup head, what they did is they made sure that the parents get no help whatsoever by planting a seed of doubt. You have to understand there's a specific strategy that demons use to make the case even worse. All along, the grandmother or the relative member think in their head that they're going to get placement of the children, but then 80% of the time they don't, and 80% is a very um, big number. So I know, I mentioned this to Attorney Davis, and like I said earlier a couple of weeks ago, and it was a mother that was on the phone with us, and she said my mom and I were perfect. You know, my aunt and I were perfect. We had beautiful family all together. All of a sudden, my family don't want to talk to her. Her family doesn't want to talk to her. They refuse to speak with her. They told her, "How dare you speak like this about us?" And she didn't say anything bad about them. And it was all written in the social worker's report. So please understand this. When you're dealing with CPS, do not think you are smarter than them. Do not think that they're there to protect the children. There are incentives involved. And I shared Nancy Schaefer's link with you guys yesterday in yesterday's show. Please watch her. Please, I'm begging you, watch Nancy Schaefer. She was a senator for Georgia. I brought her name up the first show I've done for Davis because she, God rest her soul, she intrigued me. She was very powerful. She didn't care about her seat on the Senate. She didn't care about her reputation. She wanted to protect children. And she exposed the Clintons. She exposed the state and the county. It's called Kids for Cash. Now, it got worse in 2008 when Obama was in office with Hillary Clinton. You guys need to understand something. Kids are precious, of course. We all know this. But when you're dealing with a wicked group of demonic idiots, they don't care about those kids. They don't. I've had I've had so many women that called me, and so many young men that called me, and they said, "Miss G, we spend our last dime on family law attorneys." That's another point I need to make. Family law attorneys are not CPS defense attorneys. You need to get a seasoned CPS defense attorney, not someone who's been doing it for 5 years. You know, you need someone who understands civil, CPS laws. You have to understand, you have to be expert in winning trials. All of that is very important because combined together, you got one person that will screw with them. They can't stand. First of all, we had actually a whistleblower video that I did with Attorney Davis with this young lady in California. She literally said that they have videos of Davis in the training phase of social workers, and they're showing the social workers the videos, and they're making sure that they um, kind of, how can I say, brainwash people from hiring Davis because they don't like him. If you don't like someone, that's because they're doing their job. And it just broke my heart because they will go to the depth of the earth to stop you from getting reunification with your children. Another point I want to make, they tell the family members and you that you're in the your reunification phase. That's a lie. You could be words, right? But where's the actions? Because they tell you you're in the reunification phase, but you're not. It doesn't make any sense, right? And then they tell you you're going to be reunified in October. Well, the case opened in December of 2025. If their intention was to reunify you with your children, they should have done it months and months and months and months ago. But what happens is they tell your family, well, your son is not doing his classes, he's still doing drugs. And the family doesn't even know that their son is doing drugs. And all of a sudden, we didn't know this. And they think that their son is really doing drugs. And that's why he doesn't have his kids. And they tell grandmother or grandfather or the sister or the uncle, oh, if you speak with them, we're going to come back and take the kids from you. You get me now? I hope you guys understand this. This is serious. This is a strategy that they use with every single person that is fighting CPS. Another thing, if you are fighting them and say they placed your children you're Christian and they place your children in a gay home, and you have family members, in the state that they refuse to place the children with, and you're a conservative, you don't want your children to adapt to something you're not adapt to, which is rightfully fair, right? And then you see your son, the foster parent sends you pictures of your son dressed in girls' clothing, and then you lose your mind. You go tell the social workers, I don't want my kids placed in this gay home. My son looks like a girl. You guys complain to the social workers about your feelings and your opinions and your parental rights when they're the ones who are breaking it. You need to be able to discuss it with your attorney. And when your attorney tells you don't speak with the social workers, don't speak with them. If an attorney that you hire tells you it's okay for you to speak to the social workers, then you need to run, because that attorney must be communicate with the county council. Am I right, Attorney Davis? To
Yes.
set an appointment where Mr. Davis and the social workers are available, and Mr. Davis can be on Zoom, right? And if you are asked a question by the social worker and Mr. Davis says, no, my client is not going to answer that, you don't answer that. You don't. They're going to send you so many workers. One is going to be okay, nice. The other one is going to be, witch from hell. The third one is going to be triple witch from hell. And then you're like, well, I want the first one that was somewhat nice because she knows my story. That's not going to happen. The reason they send you so many different social workers is not to help you, it's to confuse you. Because you keep repeating your story over and over again to a group of hyenas that's after your flesh. And you need to be extremely cautious. There are attorneys out there who tells you, promises the moon and the stars and all that. You got to be extremely, extremely cautious with that. If they do not put it in writing, why are you bothering with them? Why do you even consider them? I had a mother today, and I actually wrote an email to Attorney Davis about that call. It's sad. Anyways, she said that the state or whatever pays for her housing. She lives in a luxury apartment. They it's $6,000 a month. The state pays for her housing and electricity and all that stuff. She said that Attorney Davis, and I kid you not, and it's in writing, I have her text, is obligated to help illegal immigrants who are undocumented because the state pays for them. So he's obligated, she said, to help her for free, her and her husband. I find that laughable because your court appointed attorneys are free to you for you, but in reality, they get paid. They get paid by the state to do nothing. Therefore, Attorney Davis works, he delivers services. He doesn't get paid by the state. You need to think, open your mind. Therefore, he deserves to get paid for his services, especially when he is literally the number one attorney in the state. And I want to make something very clear. I spoke to another attorney today. His website is beautiful. He said he's a CPS defense attorney. He literally has the same wording as Attorney Davis. And you know what's so sad is that attorney, and I actually called him to see if he wants to work on a case with us. But once I spoke with him, I realized he doesn't know shit. He doesn't. And I'm embarrassed for him. But his website is wonderful. He even says, don't speak to the social workers without me. But yet, you don't know what you're doing. But you're copying You downloaded Attorney Davis's book so you can mimic him. That's sad. And he actually told me he downloaded Attorney Davis's book. So,
It's a great resource. Maybe he'll use it to help a family.
yes, I understand that. But, Attorney Davis, you know very damn well that there's a different strategy for every single case. Because there are certain things the parent said, there are certain things the parent did, there are certain things the social worker did and said. So, there's a different strategy for every case. That book is basic.
That's true.
Okay, so you cannot implement something you know nothing about based on what's written in the book. What if you have to do a writ instead of a 388? What if you have to do, I don't know, Attorney Davis? I mean, there are certain things, there are certain situations where you say, no, we can't do that now. We need to file a writ, right? So,
Yes. I mean, there are so many
oh, it's
nuances
JV
in
180.
the
Yeah.
law.
Mm-hmm.
So many nuances in the law.
Yep.
I can't tell you every one of them or when it comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, you know, it would be worth your while to get a consultation with me before you move forward with your case with any attorney. So think about that. It might save you a lot of heartache. Might save you a lot of heartache. I want to answer this question, by the way. Betty Joe says, I have told the social worker that I want the child, and she still doesn't want to place the child with me because they're afraid that they're going to break the bond with the foster parent. All right. That is an argument that is used time and time and time again to prevent relatives from getting the child. Depending on where you are in the case, that argument goes from weak to very strong and everything in between. So, Betty Joe, what you haven't told me is how long has the child been there? Now, depending on how long the child's been there are different strategies you want to use to force the social worker to place the child with you. And I can tell, Betty Joe, that you are doing one thing incorrectly already from the
Mm-hmm.
comments you've posted. You're trying to talk to the social worker to convince her or him to give you the child.
Yeah.
That's a bad, bad strategy.
Very.
You have to go to court and file a motion, a petition, to have the judge make the decision. Social workers don't make the decisions, they only give recommendations.
Mm.
And if you aren't happy with what the judge decides, you got to go to the appellate court with a writ or an appeal. So never give up on the situation. But Betty Joe, you're the prime candidate to call me and have a consultation. Call Miss G, arrange
Mm-hmm.
a consultation because I can see that you have little pieces of an understanding, but you're also missing crucial pieces as to what to do to solve your issue. Okay? So, Betty Joe, I'm just telling you that. Do with it what you will.
Betty Jo, I also need to add something. Sorry to interrupt, Attorney Davis. I need to add something real quick. You can email me. My email address is on the screen. Email me your information. But when you email me, make sure that you put your screen name from the show. So say that your name on the show is Betty Jo. So that way I can remember, right, who you really are. So that way when you call me and we discuss this, I will be able to get you on the phone with Attorney Davis. Okay. Um, and also, I need to also mention another important message here. about you guys preparing your JV 180 with AI. I mentioned this yesterday in one of the video in our show. Today I received a call from a lady in Lancaster. She said that she prepared her JV 180 from AI. She lost. Um, JV 180 is complex. 388 is complex. A writ is complex. If you don't know what you're doing and you're depending on artificial intelligence to know for you, you're screwing yourself. And please explain why, Attorney Davis, why this is important for you, for them to understand what a writ, what's, it's important for them to get it done right, because the judge would not even have the judge will deny the hearing if it's not done correctly. Am I right?
You are right, but I try to put this picture.
Yeah, I don't get it.
If the doctor told you you need open heart surgery, would you use AI?
No,
Why?
because I did that before, and I almost, like, I literally was a walking dead, and you told me
Okay,
to stop doing that. When I
right,
put my symptoms on AI,
right.
I should have been dead. And then I called you crying in the middle of the year, and you're like, why in the hell are you doing that? You're literally diagnosing yourself using artificial intelligence. And I thought, well, this is the symptoms I have. I need to know what's going on. And yeah. So
So
anyway,
if you won't use AI to figure out how to have that heart
no,
operation, you probably shouldn't use
no,
AI to figure out how to get your grandkid back in your home. Okay?
exactly.
The state of AI in the law right now is very tenuous. I mean, it gives ideas, but it doesn't. Sometimes the ideas aren't right. Sometimes the case sites are wrong.
Right.
But it doesn't give you a really good strategy. You think you're getting a good strategy, but that's not necessarily true. What you should do is, if you're going to use AI, talk to a lawyer after you get the output. Save yourself hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars. Here's something I want to answer. Betty Jo's still saying, I've gone to court, and the judge did not grant custody with me, and until there was an allegation against me from the mother. Betty Jo, tell me right now, did you file a 388 petition? Who prepared it? Did you file a de facto motion? Who prepared it? Did you file a WIC 827 petition for the records? And who prepared it?
What
And
did you
when
say?
you
I read
and
27.
an 827 petition,
Okay.
and if you did, who represented you at the hearing in court
Yeah.
to have these things decided? I will bet $1 that Betty Jo will tell us at least one of those things or two were not prepared by a lawyer, and
Correct.
she was not represented by a lawyer. People think that if they're a relative, they can automatically get the child. There are so many strategies by the social worker to prevent that from happening. You're always like, well, what's going on? The law is not what you think it is. Okay? The presumption is if you're a relative, you should get the kid. That doesn't mean you're going to, and that you better do it the right way. I know we live in America and people think everybody should be fair and honest. Okay? Do you ever watch the news? There are things in the government all the time that are not fair and honest, and that spills over to everyday life, including CPS proceedings. Because I can tell you right now, what you think is fair is not what they think is fair. And there's the rub. People don't understand, well, I think fairness is ABC. Why are they saying fairness is XYZ? Well, there's a lot of reasons. First of
Correct.
all, I want to explain that to you so that you can understand. I find myself telling people when they tell me, Davis, I don't understand. Davis, I don't understand. What I tell them is, oh no, you understand what I said.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't like it.
Mm-hmm. You did
Okay.
say that several times.
So be honest with me and be honest with yourself.
Mhm.
You don't like what I'm saying to you. You understand it. And in your mind, it's so unfair that you're going to say, I don't understand it.
Yep.
Now, when I tell you what the law is and you don't like it, the next thing I can tell you is a strategy that you could win with.
Okay.
So take the thought process all the way out. Understand what I'm saying. Understand that it's not what you thought it would be. And understand the strategy that I'm going to give you to get over that hurdle. A lot of people get stuck at, I don't like this. I'm going to say I don't understand, and I'm going to cut my mind off. And you're going to miss the part from Davis that says, having all that behind us, I can still give you a strategy where you may win and get custody of your child, your grandchild, your niece, your nephew, your cousin. Okay? So don't cut yourself off. Listen to my full explanation. Listen to my strategy. That's one of the most important things that I think I can do for people is I can give them a strategy. You know, other attorneys call me. Other attorneys have their clients call me. Other attorneys have their clients come pay me to meet with me so that I can give them the strategy that I would use to try to win the case. I only have that information locked in my head because I've been an attorney almost 40 years. And I've done so many juvenile cases, CPS cases, all right? And I've supervised so many attorneys that have worked for me on how to do cases. I still have, people that used to work for me doing CPS cases, and we're friendly, and they'll call me up. Hey, Vince, I got this case. What do you think? Blah, 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 blah. What would you do? And if we're friends and on good terms, I tell them. I just had a conversation with someone recently, just like that. He's a private attorney. He's a friend of mine, and he wanted to know what I would do in such a situation. But that's what you're missing. That's what you're missing if you don't talk to me and you don't listen to the important part about the strategy. Go ahead, Miss G.
First of all, I want to say hi, Jamie. I love you and I miss you too so very much. There's um, I want to remind you of something, and there's also a question I would like for you to answer for um, this person. But I want to remind you of a phone call that I had with you and another attorney, where he wanted you to help him win a CPS case in, you know, 400 miles away from us. Okay. Um, when you told him the strategy he needed to use for his client, he said to you, "That's a lot of work." Do you remember that? And I'm on the other line
Clearly remember
listening
that.
to that. I'm on the other line listening to that. And I'm like, I seriously wanted to interrupt, but I'm afraid to interrupt because Davis doesn't like that. But it just blew my mind. He said there has to be an easier alternative. And Davis said, no, this is what you need to do to win this case for your client. Well, I'm just going to decline. That was it.
That was
So
it.
that after the phone call, I tried to call Davis back, but he was busy. But I couldn't understand how an attorney would say that's a lot of work when his client was willing to pay him for that work. Does that make sense to any one of you?
It makes sense to me
Okay, well, it doesn't make sense to me.
because let me tell you why. Because everyone has their own agenda. You think you're hiring Johnny Cochran, and you're not. So quit thinking that all of these attorneys are Johnny Cochran, because they're not.
Hmm.
And they're not going to give you the level of service Johnny Cochran might have given in the case.
Yeah.
So quit expecting it. If
Now,
you if you do your homework, if you do your interviewing right, you'll be able to vet out the best attorney for you. And as a selfless self plug, call us, call Miss G. Be willing to happily give you a consult.
Trust me, just get a hold of me. I'm always available, by the way.
And by the way, here's Betty Joe again. I wish I could hire as an attorney, but I can't afford so. Well, I know what you could afford, Betty Joe. You could afford a consultation. So quit crying about spilled milk. Call us, set up a consultation so I can clue you in on what you need to do.
Yep.
Because if you don't do anything, you're going to lose that grandchild.
You're gonna have to suck it up. Suck your feeling up. Do not operate on feelings. And I tell people that, and I'm not trying to be cold about it, but I learned a lot in life. When you're emotional and you're putting emotions into something you want to win, it's not gonna win. You're gonna have to be as cold as ice and as knowledgeable as possible because how can I say this? You have to man up, you have to muscle up, grow some balls. I don't know how else to say it. Um, you have to take care of your mental state of mind in order for you to focus on winning. Okay, that is very important. And also the other question that was for you, Attorney Davis, and you removed it from the platform. It was about signing his rights, his HIPAA rights, meaning I don't know why you did that. Now I can't find him.
No, it was a gentleman who wanted to know if he should sign away his HIPAA rights.
Right.
And the answer to that generally is no, but there may be an advantage to do it. I just don't know enough about the case. That's one of those questions, Miss G, that could go either way depending on the facts and circumstances of the case. Everybody thinks it's just red or green, it's just black or white, when in fact 90% of the cases are all gray. And you're not going to know the nuances of the gray and the shades unless you talk to someone like me.
But Davis, signing your HIPAA rights to basically what he or she is saying, can they sign their HIPAA? You know, there is HIPAA rights. You know, they can't just go get it. That's violating your rights. CPS are entities working through the states, so especially in California. So they have a badge, but that doesn't give them. How can I say it? They're still not above the law, but they act like they're above the law.
Yeah. Here's a good question. Can you do a consultation though, even though I'm in Kentucky? The answer is yes, because I give you the consultation as if you were in California. California and Kentucky CPS laws are very similar because they're all based upon the root law, which is federal regulations. So, whatever I tell you, I will tell you that you should consult with an attorney in Kentucky to make sure that it's the same as California or the same strategies, right? Generally, strategies are uniform across the board. Generally, are
Hmm.
there ever any differences? Yes, there are. But for example, Cindy, I'm going to bet $1 that you are. I'm trying to find a nice way to say this. That you don't know a lot about the case and about what things you can do. And if I tell you what you would do if your case was in California, you could figure it out. You could talk to your attorney, your court appointed attorney. Okay, so the answer is yes. Give us a call, Cindy. Well, here's here's Betty Joe again. Oh, okay. Here's the one. I didn't file nothing. I win $1. My brother's attorney was doing it all for him. Him. Betty Joe, I said you need to make a motion. You need to go in front of the judge.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's the problem. That's the problem.
Can your brother's attorney, if he's the father, ever do something and it will benefit you? Yes, maybe 4 out of 10 times. So you're missing 60% of the chance to get your relatives in your care. Sounds like your niece and nephews. So when I tell you a strategy, don't modify it. Don't twist it and cut it a little bit. Right?
I have a question.
Yeah.
What advice would you give um, parents when they call you? Some of them pay for the consultation for 1 hour Zoom, and then they ask you a lot of questions so they can take the answers and give it to their attorney to help winning the case. I have you and I, we witnessed this whole year, and then they call us back and they call me back and they say, well, I give Attorney Davis's advice to my attorney, and my attorney didn't win. It's like you're giving milk to a camel, right? And you're asking it to drink it. I don't know how. Okay, not milk. What am I saying? Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
That went way over my head, Miss G.
Me too. I'm sorry. It was an old saying my mom and dad used to say, but I can't translate it from Arabic to English. But anyways,
But here's the
in
bottom
other
line.
words, it's
Here's the bottom line.
yeah, the bottom line.
If you call me and ask for a consultation, and I give you a consultation, and your lawyer is not willing to implement it, you need to find out why, because there may be a reason that you didn't tell me. Or you may want to go talk to another lawyer. You may need a second opinion.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, love. You
Well,
can lead a horse
here's
to
one.
water,
You can lead a horse to water, but you
but they
can't.
can't drink it.
No, you can't make them drink it.
You can't make them drink it, right?
Right. And
Um,
that's true with
that's
everything in life, Betty Jo.
that's true. So basically, when you guys get consultation with Davis and you give the information, you provide the information to your court-appointed attorney or someone you guys hired. That doesn't mean he or she will understand Davis's strategy to win the case. It's
Quite often,
giving a strategy from a man who actually uses it. Other attorneys don't use strategy, but
yeah.
you want to help them win by getting the strategy from Davis. That's the point I'm trying to make. How are you going to give the strategy to someone who doesn't do strategy? They just want to do A and B instead of C, D, E, F, G. I mean, does that make sense to everyone?
Miss G, we've got to wrap up. Any further questions you have for me today about contested and not contested hearings?
You already covered that.
Oh,
And
by the way, folks, um, Miss Grace, my producer, will be posting a PDF to this video later on this evening that will give you a little checklist for contested versus non-contested hearings. So it's just, little info sheet for you to look at, maybe discuss with your attorney.
okay, so Betty Joe, you can email me if you want to know. There's different amounts for consultations. Okay, for example, you can have a Zoom one-on-one with Davis for 1 hour, and that includes court document. Not I'm not talking about 100 pages, but there's certain like the minute orders he can review with you and consult you on what's going on and what the next hearing is going to be about and how to be prepared for that hearing. Now, I recommend me personally, or I recommend that because one-on-one with Davis is a lot better than just a phone call. And that way you guys can be more comfortable to show documents or text him documents that you need him to look at. So there's a different prices for that. If it doesn't include court documents, then it's a different price for that as well. But you need to call me or email me. Okay, so call the office, ask for Miss G, call the 888 number and ask for Miss G, or you can email me directly at gt@vincentwdavis.com. I guess I'm gonna write it.
I'll
GT
put it in.
at Vin. You're gonna put it in? Okay. You can email me directly, but do not forget your name, please. I don't have to run after you guys and trying to figure out who you are. And please do not forget your phone number. I've received several emails last week with no name, no phone number. So if you guys want to do Zoom with me, I'll be happy to do that. Just let me know via email that you would like to have a Zoom conversation with me, and I'll be happy to accommodate you with a link. Okay. Um, so
Miss
please. Uh-huh.
Miss G, did you have any other questions for me this evening?
My goodness, Davis, you're so eager to leave. Go, go, go. Are we doing the show tomorrow?
Yes. Tell me what the subject's going to be.
Me have to figure that out.
Okay.
And I will let you guys know tomorrow.
Grace, are you there? If so, play the outro.
Bye, everyone. I love you, Jamie.
A vivid picture is encrypted in your mind as the critics get in line like they're witnessing a crime. But then you notice there's a shiver in your spine from the feelings of discontentment and bitterness combined. Heartbroken when you listen to the judges, another kid's innocence corrupted. And if you go against it, it's destructive. Consider this predicament the toughest, but we believe in a system fit for justice. Child Protective Services only pretends to save it. The one solution for this is worthy of instant praises. 30 years of experience with relentless cases. Allow me to introduce them. This is Vincent Davis, defending you when they don't think a mother fits the role. Is it juvenile dependency or government control? Observe the pain in their eyes. It's time for us to realize we are the last ones left. Put your